Hi guys, so I don't normally do so many grammar videos in one day, but it's exam period, so there's so much stuff that people keep asking me about and I just want a resource on there. Can I remind you, anything you want to know about, if you don't find a video on it, will you please just message me or mail me at logiclanguagelearning@gmail.com. As I always say, you can search a video by the search term. If you go to my channel, then click on videos, then use the magnifying glass icon, but you cannot use it from an app or a tablet. So yeah, from a smartphone basically. So you can from a PC. But if you want the video finding, please just let me know. Right, so this is specifically for the likes of Monica and Alan today. And also just something I just wanted to really put out there. So this is doubling up a theme that we've talked about before. I will try and attach that video underneath, which is basically when you are using pronouns, reflexive pronouns, combining it with the pronoun en, which is of it. So we've done videos on what en is, and we've done videos on what the reflexive is. If you don't already, when you're watching this, and thank you for your support, if you don't understand what those things are, then do please just look at those terms in the, in the list, and make sure you're comfortable with that first, because this is quite an advanced video. If you want me to find you something to watch on that specifically from the collection, like I said, email me logiclanguagelearning@gmail.com. Or just add a comment underneath and I will do that. So what are we building on today? So the technique that we're talking about, and all of this will be written underneath as per normal now, is poetry past. So poetry past is when we have to tick two boxes. We've got a reflexive verb, yeah? So je me, tu te, il se, nous, vous, il se, or elle se, or on se. And or a name and so Luc, so. And we've got a verb which is going, so first of all in the past, so the auxiliary past. Yes, it's called the passé composé, but we don't think about that. We're just going to think past. So the technique I've gone over with you before is this. Rather than thinking, oh, I need to think of the subject, then I need to think of the reflexive, then I need an auxiliary, that life's too short and it's too slow doing it that way. So what we say is, regardless of whether your video is your verb is a standard reflexive verb. So the ones you learn, I wash, I get up, I shave. Well, once I did shave, I prepare myself. When you learn reflexive verbs, those are the ones you tend to learn. And what we're looking at is how you can use most verbs reflexively. So I touch myself, I explain to myself, I ask myself, whatever's going on. So as we've said before, if you are using any verb in the past, even if it's not normally a verb that uses be, yes, I said j'ai dit, we're using have. What are we saying? I speak, j'ai parlé, j'ai demandé, I've asked. I asked myself, je me suis demandé, je me suis dit, je me suis parlé. You're going to use the reflexive with be. So this little pattern, which is written underneath, is basically what we've already done in other videos. So instead of working it out slowly, we go poetry past. Poetry just means three words: the person, reflexive, and the verb to be. So they are, and you should really know this if you're watching this video, je me suis, tu t'es, il s'est, nous, nous sommes, vous, vous êtes, ils se sont. Okay? So what we're getting onto though now is how we're going to combine that with en and the different types of situations where we need to do that. So if I, as basic, took the poetry, so the system would be find the poetry plus whatever the past word would be. So he got washed, il s'est, past word lavé. And we've also looked in other verbs about how we've also looked in other videos about how we can stick that with other tenses. So if I gave you I washed, if I gave you I spoke, j'ai parlé, I gave you I had spoken, j'avais parlé, I will have spoken, j'aurais parlé, subjunctive que j'ai parlé. So let's do that with the verb to be. So je suis parti, I had gone, j'étais parti, I will have gone, je serais parti, or I would have gone, je serais parti with an S. That I went, he's happy I went, il est content que je sois parti. So we have dealt with swapping the auxiliary when it's be into other tenses. So all we're going to do now is take our basic je me suis, tu, t'es, il, c'est, nous sommes, vous, êtes, ils, sont, and we're going to play around with that. So let's go with the was's. So I had done something to myself. So you have a new set of poetry pasts. So I said to myself, je me suis, tu, t'es. They're going to jump around because they're going between the verbs that begin with S and verbs that begin with B. So we're looking at now changing all of the auxiliary verb into the was. The whole thing isn't in the was tense, but that to give me the had, the auxiliary will be in the was tense. So for example, je m'étais, tu t'étais, ils s'étaient, nous étions, vous étiez, ils étaient, and indeed they will be underneath. So I washed myself, the verb is laver, so poetry, je me suis lavé. I had washed myself, or I had gotten washed, je m'étais lavé. I will have washed myself, je me serai lavé. Because I'd have je me serai, tu te serais, what am I doing? Je me serai, tu te serais, let's do will rather than would. So je me serai, tu te seras, il se sera, nous serons, vous serez, ils se seront. That's the basic block. So your poetry has been updated for the will have. I will have gotten washed. Je me serai lavé, tu te seras lavé, il se sera lavé, etc. Okay? I would have. What are you doing? The auxiliaries, what's changing? Only the auxiliary. I would have gotten washed. Je me serais lavé. Tu te serais lavé. Il se serait lavé. Nous serions lavés, etc. So what you really need to do is just think, I'm not going to worry about the verb at the end. I'm just going to get my je me suis, or je m'étais, or je me serais, and that needs to become a standard pattern for you. So, next idea. If you are then bringing in these verbs that can use en, it's actually a case of, we don't need to kind of concentrate. We need to just remember that this poetry and past word system can be updated to include the en. So if I gave you je me suis, tu t'es, il s'est, nous sommes, vous êtes, ils sont, and I asked you to include en in it, and they're all written underneath, you can have je m'en suis, tu t'en es, il s'en est, nous en sommes, vous en êtes, ils sont, because you are sticking en with the pronoun. What's our slogan? We always use it. Pronouns before verbs, bits before verbs. So je and me was with your two pronouns before, subject and reflexive. So now you're going to have je and me and en. So your je m'en, tu t'en, ils sont, nous en, vous en are going to come together. Now this is really important. Pronouns before verbs, bits before verbs. So when you go in any of the other tenses, you see the verb, sont allés, s'envoler. You've seen these verbs. How am I going to conjugate them? The je m'en is a cluster. It's not going anywhere. I always say to you, bits before verbs, unless you've got an infinitive. Same here. The je m'en is not going to go anywhere in any tense, unless you've got an infinitive. So, for example, if I gave you, he gives me, notice how the pronouns don't change in any tense. Il me donne, il m'a donné, il m'avait donné, il me donna in books. Il me donnerait, il me donnerait, il me donnera, il me donnerait, il m'aurait donné, qu'il me donne, subjunctive, qu'il m'ait donne, subjunctive past. Those are all the spoken tenses in French, and indeed also the passé simple in books. So the il me doesn't change unless you've got il va me donner. That's the only time you pull your pronouns apart. So let's do the same thing here. Je m'en is a cluster of pronouns that's not going to come apart unless you've got, or tu t'en, or ils sont, etc. That's not going to come apart unless you've got an infinitive. So let's say we're talking about the verb je m'en fous. I don't give a monkeys, I don't care less. So you've got je m'en fous, je m'en foutais, je m'en suis foutu. Let's use one which is kind of a little bit more regularly used in that case. So let's use je m'en occupe. So I'm dealing with it. Je m'en occupe. So this is a reflexive verb. And more about the kind of verbs that we use with the en later, but it would be je m'en occupe, je m'en occupais, je m'en suis occupé, je m'en étais occupé, je m'en serais occupé, je m'en serais occupé, que je m'en occupe, que je m'en sois occupé. So the point is, the je m'en bit, this is my point, is not going anywhere. The only time that will be separated is if you have an infinitive. So je vais m'en occuper. Because je m'en is a cluster and you're going to keep the first person away. So now let's look at the different types of verbs that do this. So there are verbs which curiously are reflexive, but then have de and then have someone on the other side. So I'm going to use the teaching tool of this mug. So I've got, I remember you. You want to go, je te rends. Je me souviens de toi. You're on the other side of the de. I look after you. Je m'occupe de toi. And you're like, but why are you looking after yourself? Why are you remembering yourself? It's like, I'm occupying myself about you. I'm remembering to myself about you. I'm teasing you. Not je te moque, it's je me moque de toi. So a lot of these verbs are what I have previously told you are trident verbs. And I will attach that video underneath. And if I don't, please remind me. And trident verbs are verbs where you have de in the middle. You don't have to have a reflexive to be a trident verb, but that is a verb where you can either use de, dans, or en, and indeed you need to. So j'ai besoin de la femme, I need the woman. La femme dont j'ai besoin, or j'en ai besoin, I have need of it. Yeah. So that is a trident verb. So with these verbs now, what we're going to do is we're going to work out that there's ones where you can choose to use en instead of your de, or there's ones where as a phrase you need on in it because it's a phrasal, in it, that sounded very London, in it because it's a phrasal verb. So for example, the verb s'occuper is s'occuper de. So what we are looking at is verbs that you can use with the reflexive that then have a de. And I've made you a little list and I popped it, I will pop it underneath. So for example, let me scroll down. So yes, so for example, se souvenir de, to remember, s'occuper de, to deal with, se méfier de, to mistrust, yeah, to be doubtful of, se douter de, same thing, se charger de, to take care of, s'excuser de, to apologize for. And they are just some of the examples which you can use in this way. And what that basically means is that they are verbs where you don't have to use the on, but if you're going to put the on in, we're going to have to do it this way. So, I remember you. Je me souviens de toi. I look after you. Je m'occupe de toi. Yeah, that's reflexive. So if I went in the past, je me suis occupé de toi. You may well have done je me suis lavé, je me suis rasé, je me suis posé la question. But now we've got je me suis verb, then the de, then the person. So I looked after you. Je me suis occupé de toi. What else can we have? I apologize for something. Je me suis excusé de whatever I'm apologizing for. Okay. So the fact is, if you now needed to say en instead of the de thing, je m'en suis souvenu, je m'en suis occupé, je m'en serais occupé, So you are going to use your poetry with en for these verbs. So for example, again, if I go back to my list and I look at we'll use that one. So se méfier is to be careful of something. So I'm being careful of it. Je me méfie de quelque chose. So je m'en méfie, I was careful. Je m'en méfiais. Je m'en étais méfié. So we're largely, I'm not saying you can't use these with verbs without auxiliaries, but this video is mainly focusing on when you've got auxiliaries. So for example, it comes towards you, I will deal with it. Je m'en, there's your cluster. M'occuperai. That's easy, there's no auxiliary. Je m'en was dealing with it. Occuper. There's the imperfect, there's no auxiliary. Those verbs we can handle. Car alarm, how annoying. So I would have dealt with it if I'd known. Je m'en, cluster, serai occupé. Je m'en serais occupé. I had dealt with it already, but the problem came back. Je m'en, cluster, était occupé. So you've got to kind of think in your mind, I'm getting rid of my cluster, then I'm coming out with what I would normally do with the verb to be in that situation. So je suis parti, j'étais parti, je serai parti, je serai parti, etc. So that's going to happen. Je m'en suis occupé, je m'en étais occupé, je m'en serais occupé, etc. Okay, so let's have a little look at other verbs. So there are verbs where we have to use en. There are phrasal verbs where you have to use en. And they are, okay, quite commonly, where are we? Yes, so s'en sortir is to get yourself out of it. Tu t'en sors? Yeah, you were right, you're getting out of it, tu t'en sors. So what's the trick? Yeah, by all means use these verbs in any of the tense. So what's the soft and hard of sortir, sort? So je m'en sors. Yeah. I'm happy I'm getting out of it, subjunctive. Je suis content que je m'en sorte. But the point is, we're looking at how to do it with the auxiliaries, with the compounds. So go back to your poetry. Je me suis, or je m'en suis, tu t'en es, tu t'es or tu t'en es. We're going to look at the ones with en. So je m'en suis, je m'en étais, use the cluster, je m'en serai, je m'en serai. So I got out of it. Je m'en suis sorti. Well, there was lots of problems, but I got out of it. Je m'en suis sorti. I had gotten out of it, but now there's more problems. Je m'en étais sorti, et maintenant il y a plus de problèmes. I will have gotten out of it. Come at 4 o'clock, I'll have gotten through all this mess. Je m'en serais sorti. I would have gotten out of it if I'd have been given the password for the computer, whatever. Je m'en serais occupé si on m'avait donné le mot-clé pour l'ordinateur. So the point is, it's cluster, whatever the verb to be is. So these verbs, let's do another one. S'en aller, very common. Have you ever heard someone say je m'en vais in French? You don't just say I'm going, yeah? You say je me casse, yeah, I'm off, which is a bit slang, I'm breaking off. Or je m'en vais. You can't just say je vais. You can say j'y vais or je m'en vais. So the verb is s'en aller. So if I gave you se laver, you would automatically go je me suis lavé. So if you saw the infinitive was s'en aller, you just need to go, I need the poetry with en. So not je me suis, but je m'en suis. Not je m'étais, but je m'en étais. So s'en aller, so I got off. Not like that, but off I went. Je m'en suis allé. I'd gone, je m'en étais allé. I would have gotten out of there, je m'en serais allé. So again, it's just a question of the poetry with en plus whatever the past word's going to be. Let's look at another one. The verb s'envoler, which is to fly away. Not to fly, but to fly away. So the bird flies away, l'oiseau s'envole. So the basic verb that we're using here is voler, but with our son before. So what do? We keep the... That WhatsApp scared the shit out of me. We keep the cluster. So he flies away, il s'envole. He flew away, get the cluster, then the verb to be, then the past. Il s'en est volé. So il s'en est volé. He had flown away. Oh, I saw a swan earlier, but he'd flown away. Il s'en était volé. He would have flown away, but I gave him something to eat. Il s'en serait volé. So the point is the cluster. Il, seront, cluster, auxiliary of the verb to be, then your past word. Okay? So with that one, you have, okay, so I don't care, je m'en fous, I don't care, I didn't care, je m'en foutais, je m'en suis foutu, je m'en étais foutu, je m'en serais foutu, I wouldn't have given a shit, I wouldn't have given a fuck. Right. There's another one that I'd like to draw our attention to finally, which is if you end up using verbs with the reflexive, which again don't have to be reflexive. So the other two categories we've done are verbs which have to be reflexive, which may or may not have to have the en. We're now looking at verbs which don't have to be reflexive, but you're doing something to yourself, and you're also choosing to use en. So for example, I bought the bread. J'ai acheté le pain. I brought myself the bread. The minute you do something to yourself, you're not buying yourself, but you're buying something for yourself. So je me suis acheté du pain. I bought myself some bread. Yeah. Je me suis acheté le pain. I bought myself the bread. I bought myself some. Je m'en suis acheté. So whoa, we've got a verb which didn't start anything like this, but we're going to be using the reflexive because the reflexive pronoun can also be used for somebody. Yeah. So for yourself. Yeah. So for example, he buys himself a new car every year. Il s'achète une nouvelle voiture chaque année. What's being bought is the car, but he buys a new car for himself. So the reflexive pronoun can kind of be indirect. So for example, he bought himself, il s'est acheté. He's not buying himself, but he's buying for himself. So as long as you're using the reflexive, you are going to need to have the verb to be. So il s'en est acheté, il s'est acheté une nouvelle voiture. He bought himself one, or he bought himself some. Il s'en est acheté. He had bought himself some. Il s'en était acheté. He would have bought himself some if the price were cheaper. Il s'en serait acheté, or il s'en serait acheté with a link. si le prix avait été plus raisonnable, if the price had been more reasonable. So what I'm saying is all of these constructions, you are just going to have to approach in the same way. The cluster, je m'en, tu t'en, ils sont, nous nous en, vous vous en, ils sont, plus your verb to be, plus your past word, okay? Final thing, if you're going into the tense with the infinitives, as we've said before, get verb number one out of the way, and then you're going to start from the m'en, the temps, the nous en, the vous en, etc. You don't have a cluster of je m'en, you're going to have je vais. So for example, I'm going to remember, je vais m'en souvenir. Yeah? In the way that you'd say, je le fais, I do it, I'm going to do it, je vais le faire. I remember, je m'en souviens, trident verb, it needs an on. I'm going to remember it, je vais m'en souvenir. He's going to deal with it. Il va s'en occuper. Il and sont, which are normally our cluster, are separated. Okay? He was going to deal with it. He wants to deal with it. We don't care what the first verb does or which tense it's in. Il allait s'en occuper. Il veut s'en occuper. We don't care. As long as that is happening, and you've got an infinitive, then you will break the cluster. Okay? So patterns you need for this, word patterns that are going to sum all of this up. We know what poetry past is. Poetry past means the je me suis, or the je m'étais, or the je me sois, or the je me serai. It basically means your pattern, your standard pattern, with the past participle on the end. The cluster is basically using the je, the me, and the en, or the tu, the te, and the en, etc., which will then go into a verb or verbs. Yeah, cluster plus verb or verbs. So, il s'en souvient, just one verb. I'm happy he remembers. Je suis content qu'il s'en souvienne, one verb. Okay, so this should be useful. So now let's just do some speaking. So, I realized it yesterday. Je m'en suis rendu compte hier. Okay, I'm going to buy myself some. Je vais m'en acheter. Okay, he offered himself some last year, and he was very happy. Il s'en est offert l'année dernière, et he was very happy. Il était très content. She apologized about it. Elle s'en est excusée. Okay, she had apologized about it before, but the same thing happened again. Elle s'en était occupée. Elle s'en était excusée avant, mais la même chose était arrivée. I would have dealt with it if I'd have known there was a problem. Je m'en serais occupé si j'avais su qu'il y avait un problème. I wouldn't have given a shit if you'd have told me you were pregnant. Je m'en serais foutu. Yeah, je m'en serais foutu si tu m'avais dit que tu étais enceinte. Good. So I really hope this has been useful. Please do let me know. So underneath, I will endeavor to include the Trident video to have, if you've not seen that already, and more kind of on videos, and also just the general reflexives in the past video. But this is really the more advanced way of what to do when we're using verbs with en, remembering our three categories. Verbs that have to have en as part of their phrasality, so s'en aller, s'envoler, etc. Verbs which we can choose to use en as part of our Trident series, so je vais me souvenir de lui, I'm going to remember him, or je vais m'en souvenir, or le garçon dont je m'en souviens, whatever, you've got de, dans, or en, or the ones where you just choose to, for whatever reason, do something to yourself, for yourself, and then also you're going to reduce your object to en, and that will end up giving you both the reflexive and the en at the same time. So I hope this is useful, guys. Do please let me know. Get some of this in your written work, particularly with the subjunctive. Yeah. He's happy I bought myself some. Il est content que je m'en sois acheté. I mean, game over. If I'm marking that on an A-level paper, top grade. Okay, guys, I will speak to you soon.